Hello, this is Jonathan Little. Today we are playing against PokerAlfie, which is a poker bot. I really do not know a whole lot about the program or how it works. There is information on their website, but we're going to play for a while and see what happens. So in this hand, what's happening is this guy folds, this guy folds. This player makes it 350 in the cutoff seat. We have King 9 offsuit. And I'm going to play as if I am trying to play against world-class players for a while. Then eventually we will try to adjust significantly and see what happens. It's also a little protocol window on the side. You can't really see it here, but it explains what's happening in the hand in case I get lost, I suppose. Maybe we'll put that in the video next time. So right here, I think you either need to 3-bet or fold. And I think either play is fine. Why don't we go ahead and 3-bet? We'll make it 11. We're playing $100 stacks. I want to raise to 11. Maybe that works. All right, so I do make it 11. So our stack went from 89 to this amount. This player shoves all in. Okay. Now we'll fold. All right, next hand, fold, fold, queen, jack offsuit. We will raise to, let's say, $3. Big blind calls, we get this flop. This is a pretty good spot to check behind. We could bet for value, but I think checking here is typically going to be the best play. I want to be checking with bad aces, jacks, and tens. Betting nut hands and sporadic bluffs. Probably hands like, king X suited and whatnot if I am opening those. So on the turn, I think we can probably bet for value now. So we'll bet $4. Opponent folds. Okay. Queen jack offsuit. We get pretty good hands here. I think we can raise this or fold this. I don't think either play is particularly great or horrible. Program does take a second or two to think, which is perfectly fine. The developers told me that this thinking time is not necessarily ideal. It would probably want to think longer in theory, but it is what it is. Let's go and bet 4 on the flop. We could bet less. I think maybe 3 is fine. I think maybe 2 is fine. I mean, maybe I'm only getting playable hands or hands deemed to be thought as playable. Not entirely sure. Maybe I'm just on the rush of the century playing against the bot for play money. All right, this player raises to 3.5. We're in the big blind 6 for offsuit. We'll fold. Small blind. We'll probably develop a limping strategy here if they fold to me and see what happens. In my experience, it seems like... So this guy raises 350. In my experience, it seems like a lot of the bots do not necessarily do well in limped pots. They do much better in raising or 3-betting scenarios. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Like this hand, if I was the developer of the program, I would like to allow me, Jay Cardshark, to just fold. I say Jay Cardshark like that's my online name. I would like to give me the opportunity just to fold these hands pre-flop without having to wait on the program to think. Because I just know I'm folding these hands every time. All right, ace queen in the big blind. We will... I guess I gotta walk. It seems to know every time I have a good hand. All right, we have a raise to 350. We could 3-bet this, I think. Let's go ahead and try. Let's make it 11 again, see what happens. Maybe we get jammed on. Who knows? So opponent folds, which is fine. Fine result. Jack 9 offsuit in the cutoff. So I typically use Equilab's default hand suggestions. So let's see what it suggests from the cutoff. You go to no limit, short-handed, loose, cutoff. And as you see, it does suggest Jack 9 offsuit, so we'll probably be opening this hand. I think folding's not ridiculous. What it really amounts to is from hijack and lowjack, you need to be pretty snug, 6-handed, but from cutoff and button, you should be getting after it a bit. Ace 4 offsuit under the gun. We will fold. Big blind. Let's see what this small blind does. He just gives us a walk. Kind of surprised I got walks twice, blind versus blind, which is somewhat interesting. Let's 3-bet. Oh, wait. What's happening here? Did he make it 2? Okay, so he min-raise button. Interesting. I like this min-raise button strategy because it makes it to where the player on the button can call a 3-bet a lot because stack-to-pot ratios can be pretty deep. Let's go ahead and make it 8, though. Sizable 3-bet. You want to discourage your opponent from calling most of the time. 8 for offsuit's a hand I would typically fold on the button if the opponents are good. If they fold to me, but they didn't. Cut off with 3-2 offsuit. We will fold. Raise to $2. So this is a little bit confusing to me, all of these numbers it has. I think I would prefer to have like these numbers, or maybe the total won loss number somewhere else, because it's kind of confusing to me like what the raise size is in this scenario. 9-7 offsuit will defend. You could also 3-bet if you feel like it. Horrible flop for me. I assume this bot doesn't know anything about my timing tells, so we're going to ignore timing. Pretty cool spot to bet $1. Should be way better for the button's range than my range, so sweet spot. I don't mind it at all. Puts me in a miserable scenario with a lot of my range. All right, so it makes it $5? All right, so I would be interested to know what the program is doing with its raise sizing pre-flop, but you know, we don't know. We're flying blind. So do we want to make it like 17, assuming this is only a strong range? Or do we want to make it less, assuming this is primarily weak range? And I have no clue. I'm going to assume his bigger raises are probably good hands, but that's just pure speculation. I think we just make it 15, though. I'd make it 15 here with... Actually, so what would I do with my bluffs if I wanted to have bluffs? I just would not have bluffs in this spot, or very few bluffs, because when someone makes it so big, you just don't have to defend very often at all. Well, let's try 15. I think this is probably fine. It's going to induce a call a lot of the time. Kind of surprised the program folded there. Very frequently, you'd think the program would want to call and see a flop. All right, so here we have a 350 raise. I don't know if the program's adjusting to me in particular with various raise sizing. It's trying stuff out, but it's mixing up between pot, 3x, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so here we 3-bet. We get 4-bet. So we're going to fold. Big 4-bet. Kind of interesting. Oh, it seems like it always resets the stacks to $100. I did not quite... Or maybe it wasn't resetting my stack. Kind of confused about that. So we make it 3 with king, queen offsuit. Great flop for me. Trying to think if there's any merit at all to checking this, and I don't think there is. We could also vary our continuation bet, but I'm typically betting 4 on the marginally coordinated boards. Opponent check raises. So what is a reasonable check raising range here? Well, queens, good queens, draws, and sets. 9-6 offsuit's probably not in the opponent's range, given I raised under the gun. Queen 9 could be there, of course. Sets could be there, but there's a bunch of draws. So we're going to call, and I don't really think I'm looking to fold very often. Jack 10 gets there, but that's okay. Looks like opponent wants to play for stacks, which is a bit unfortunate. I think we want to call here to keep all the bluffs in. Do we ever want to shove? Probably not. I really want to give him a shot to blast off with 8-7 if he has 8-7. Opponent checks river. So now do I value bets? The question becomes, can he ever call with worse? Well, if he has queen 9, he'll call. I think. I'm trying to think if he would check 2 pair here. I really don't think the opponent's checking 2 pair. I think that would probably not be a great play. I don't know. Interesting spot. I'm going to go ahead and bet all in, though. Maybe a small bet's better. It's difficult to say. I wish there was a way to go back to the previous hand just to look it over one more time, because I think on the river, maybe a tiny bet would be better. That would be a pretty sweet play, like betting something like $10 on the river, because maybe one pair of hands just never call a big bet, but if you bet tiny, maybe they should call, because then I could have random 8-7 in my range, no problem, and the other draws. So I don't know. I could see a small bet there being better. All right, fold, 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 fold. This guy limps small blind. All right, we could raise this 10-2 offsuit if we feel like. You typically want to raise your best hands and your worst hands. Let's try making it 4 and see what happens. This could just be pure spew. I do think we'll get folds a lot of the time pre-flop, though, from most poker players. So I like that. We're going to use the small blind strategy I discussed at pokercoaching.com for our think it was our May webinar or June webinar, where I'm going to be limping a lot of hands and limp betting very frequently. I'm going to have no raising range from the small blind at all. I don't know if that's optimal, but I know it's easy enough to balance or be somewhat balanced. So I like that. We're just going to be limp betting a ton. I potted it on the flop with, I think I had double gut shot or gut shot, one of the two. It doesn't really matter. We're potting very frequently. This is a great spot to 3-bet. If this was full ring, I may just call if this guy raised under the gun full ring, but not from low jack C, of course. Maybe I should start making a little bit less, see what happens. So we made it 11 a few times, and the player folded or 4-bet huge, so maybe that's actually a better play. Oh, well, this is good. Interested to see what he jammed with. Did it not show me? He had pocket 10s and flopped a set. It says it on the side. Oh, I see. You can scroll up to see what happened. Okay, so let's take a look at this hand. Guy raises to 350. I make it 10. Then this guy just jams for 100 big blinds with pocket 10s. I do not really see how this could be a good play because I'm going to be calling off very perfectly. I'm going to fold. I'm going to call with ace king. I'm probably going to fold ace queen. So I'm calling ace king, and then probably 10s are better. 9s are probably close with a fold. So I don't really like this play. I think this is probably a spot where versus under the gun raise and a 3-bet, you should probably actually fold the 10s. I mean, that may be a little bit nitty, but I mean, maybe I think that your under the gun range should be tighter than you think it should be. So yeah, interesting spot. I don't think I would have shoved the 10s there. I think I would have folded, but that could easily just be a little bit too tight. Obviously, it's always good when you make a set. All right, so some more folds. 10-8 offsuit in the blind. We get a walk again. So I definitely imagine the program is walking us a little bit too often. So that's just something to be aware of. We have a big raise. All right, ace-9 suited on the button. Let's make it, we'll just keep doing 3, see what develops. We'll definitely call a 3-bet, most likely. 7-6-5 is a pretty awful flop for me. An opponent bets 11, so 1.5x pot. Interesting. So I don't really know in this scenario if the opponent's betting this one time with the intention of giving up, or if the opponent is betting this to like blast the turn and then the river. I think I'm going to peel here. 9's not necessarily good, but a club is fine, an ace is fine, and 8 is fine. So I'm going to call and see what happens. Club, here we go. This is where you really don't want the opponent to like go all in or something. So should we bet the turn? I think we probably should. Let's try 23. Well, let's try to figure out an amount that he'll fold a 6-2 or a 5-2. Maybe even bigger? The problem is as we get bigger, I have to call a jam. I guess I may have to call a jam regardless. We'll run some math if we come to that. Pot's 28. Yeah, let's try 24. And opponent folds. So that's interesting. Maybe the opponent is blasting flops that should be good for him and bad for me blindly. I know that's a strategy that's quite good in PLO. When you defend the big blind, you can often donk on low card boards. It's a very strong play. And there's nothing your opponents can do about it. So you can frequently just pot it and you just win. And in that scenario, you usually go pot, 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 and your opponent really can't do anything about it. All right, so here goes 350, 1450. This is a very big 3-bet for 100 big blind stacks. I guess we should probably click him to like 26. Yeah, let's click him to 26. He's going to call a ton here. And then I can bet something like 16 on a lot of flops. And there's not a whole lot he can do. Pot's 56. Maybe let's go 16. I think 16 is pretty sweet. This is a spot where, again, we should just have our opponent's range demolished. And we get all in, so that's good. Let's see what he had. Pull it over here. Does it say? Oh, he had pocket 9s. So, interesting spot where the opponent decided to go with the pocket 9s on the flop. I mean, it's a horrible spot for him, that's for sure, and that's what making the small bet does. So that's good. We got it in really good twice. It's always good to get it in really good twice. King 6 offsuit. What are we going to do with King 6 offsuit? Facing a 3.5x, I guess we're going to fold. If it was a min raise, I would likely defend. All right, so we'll implement the limping strategy again. Pretty good flop again. Let's bet 2. Folds to me. Let's make it 3. All right, so let's think about this. We get completely blasted. Started with 100 big blind stack, so I make it 3. He makes it 35. I mean, this is a scenario where I really just have to virtually never defend this because the opponent's risking so much to win so little. I'd be interested to see what range it's doing it with, but, you know, whatever, we're going to fold. All right, King, Queen offsuit, we'll raise to 3 again. That thing that just happened where we raised small and then someone just blasts us for a huge amount, that's something that... What? That's something that happens very frequently in small stakes games where you raise and someone just blasts it huge. You can just fold a ton of hands. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a little bit confused here. I made it 3, and it says he made it 4, which is not a legal raise. Maybe that's just a glitch with the program, but it is relevant. So this is a weird spot because I'm never in a spot where you make it 3 and they make it 4. I'm going to check this, and if he blasted, I'm going to fold. If he bets tiny, I'm going to call, I suppose. It goes check, check on the flop. Do I ever bet to try to make him fold out 10s, 9s, 8s, 7s, etc.? He'll probably check back a jack on the flop. So really the question is, do I turn this into a bluff? And I think I'm just going to continue checking. We have plenty of equity. Now I have a lot of equity. So most likely opponent's range is just total garbage. So I'm going to bet $2. Actually, I'm going to bet $4. If he has a jack, he's going to call every time. If he has a bad ace, he's going to call every time. If he has pocket 9s, he's probably going to fold. But this is a bet that maybe in some world he will pay off. But he just folds. That's a weird hand. The developer actually mentioned that... let me find the email. That in this scenario, or the program may bet way too high or way too low, and in the next 2 months they're going to be fixing that to increase the quality of play. So, you know, maybe that's just one of those spots where it does something funny. All right, fold, 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 fold. 8-3 also we will not be defending. Small blind raises to $12. We'll just fold. I definitely think there are spots for big bets in No Limit Texas Hold'em, but I sure don't know them. Let's go 10 again. I don't think it really matters what we make it, as long as it's something. If he has to jam or anything like that, we're just going to call. This is a board we definitely want to bet on for protection. So we have to ask ourselves, what are we trying to get called by in this spot? If he has any good spade, he's probably going to call. If he has an ace, he's going to call. If he has worse than that, he's probably going to be folding to any bet. So I think we want to bet on the bigger side in this spot. If he shoves, I'm just going to call. I mean, he's going to have a flush sometimes, but that's okay. Going back to Equilab's pre-flop hand range chart, you see 9-5 offsuit in is going to be a fold even on the button. So we're just going to fold. You don't have to play bad hands just because you have them. I mean, just because you're on the button does not mean you have to splash around a huge amount. It's interesting because whenever the program takes more than like a second, you know that the raise is coming. All right, so this is kind of cool. Ace-2 offsuit. Are we supposed to 3-bet this small and then fold to a shove? I think that might be the play. So opponent makes it 11 again. Very, very big. I think we're going to make it 25 and then fold to a shove. This could be ridiculous, but I think it's going to be okay. Opponent may just be going with his entire preflop raising range in this spot. So it's kind of difficult to know what's going on. I would have continuation bet this flop if he checked, I think. Once he bets $1, I think we're going to treat this as a check and raise to 23. Then, of course, we are done with it if he puts a chip in the pot. but he folds. Yeah, I mean, not surprised. I think that that's it's a pretty bizarre scenario. I don't really know what to make of that spot, but your opponent can't really get away with blasting it if you are going to really adjust your ranges to take advantage of them blasting it. I mean, maybe I'm just supposed to be playing the hand like that anyway. All right, so here I limp pre-flop, bet 2 big blinds on the flop, get a pretty nice turn to continue barreling, and we'll be barreling the river as well. So we'll just go bet, bet, bet here. He's going to call the turn a lot, I think. He probably should fold the river a lot with a hand like a 5. So we're just going to go bet, 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 kind of on the bigger side. I wouldn't be shocked if we get called by a 5. That could just easily be the right play, but the board ran out pretty nice to where we can bluff a lot. And what happened? Opponent folded, so that's good. 3.5 big blind under the gun raise. We're just going to fold the queen 9 suited. Queen 4 offsuit in the cutoff. Pulling up the chart again, you see queen 4 offsuit's nowhere near the playable hand range, so we'll just fold. Six 3 offsuit facing a big raise, we'll fold. Small blind will implement the same limping strategy as before. Opponent is yet to raise, which is kind of interesting. Do we bet here for just sort of protection to pick up the pot, or do we check? I think we probably want to go ahead and bet. If our opponent folds, that's fine. You know, we're protecting the equity pretty much. If we get called, we could still have the best hand. Well, the problem is that we're very rarely going to get to showdown if we have the best hand, because if the opponent has any pair, they're going to be betting a ton. We'll just keep checking. I mean, we may win versus queen high sporadically. But let me see what the opponent had. Opponent had... Doesn't really make it easy to know who won the spot. Opponent had jack 3. So opponent river to jack. As you can see here. I bet the flop, opponent called the pot size bet with jack 3. That's probably speculative. Turns of 5, it goes check, check. I think jack 3 should probably be bluffing the turn. And then river's a jack. I think we should probably value bet the river. So that's a spot I would definitely not play as the program did. 9-2 offsuit on the button. We'll just fold. Fold. Jack 6 suited from this early position, we can fold as well. Again, taking a look at the hand range chart they suggest here, you'll see that it really shrinks up as you get an early position. You have a big jump from middle position to cutoff in general. But jack 6 suit is just not playable here. Queen 9 offsuit folds the small blind. We're probably going to be playing this one. Opponent limps. So we made it $4 earlier and the opponent folded. Let's actually try making it... Well, so this is a hand I actually think flops pretty good. If we had a better hand, like ace 9, I'd probably want to raise for value. But with this hand, I think it's probably fine just to check and see a flop. If opponent bets, we'll just fold. If opponent checks, we will bet. I think pot's fine here. The pot's very small, so I think we can bet on the bigger side. Maybe 1.75 is ideal. Opponent bets $1 on the turn. Oh, boy. So we have a few options here. We can either call and just try to peel some equity, or maybe win with queen high, or maybe bluff the river. We could fold. That seems a little bit weak given our amazing pot odds. Or we could call the turn to raise the river huge, or we could raise immediately. Let's try to call, and then I may raise the river. This is likely what I would do with a jack. Now that we've improved to a 9, I'm going to... Wow, he bets $1 again. I'm probably going to raise this for value. I think we can go kind of small. $5 raise over the $1 bet. Quite often people look at a river bet and think they're supposed to make it 3 times that bet every time blindly when they're going to raise. Or 2.75x, something like that. But in this spot... we need to raise bigger because he's betting so tiny in proportion to the pot. Usually when people say you want to make it 3 times someone's bet or something like that, it's usually referring to, normal-ish size bets. But here we are not against a normal size bet. And this is purely a value raise. We're not bluffing or anything. And opponent folded. So I think our strategy would have worked out well because I planned on raising a lot of rivers regardless of what the river came. Just so happened that he bet really tiny and we got to... Oh, what happened here? Oh, no, this is right. Okay. We got to raise for value on that river. The program's addicting. You keep getting good cards. Makes you obligated to raise. $35 re-raise, or we're going to be all in. So I made it 3. This guy made it 35. We saw this earlier, and we folded with ace-6 suited. This hand is good enough to shove. I'm probably going to be shoving with probably jacks or better and ace-king in this spot, but probably ace-queen suited, and probably ace-queen offsuit. So that's going to be roughly my range. Maybe 10s are better, now that I think about it. I won. What were we against? I was against pocket 7s, so that's not so shocking. I think 7s is a hand that you typically do want to play big pots with. You want to get it all in preflop because the hand plays quite poorly post-flop, but I think that's going to be a super exploitable strategy to where your opponents can just play kind of tight. Ace-7 offsuit, I think folding's fine. I think 3-betting's okay. I think calling's okay. I'm just going to fold this time. Aces again. Wow, we're getting all the cards. So we'll continue implementing limping strategy. Same strategy before. Limp, bet, pot on the flop. We've done this 4 times now. Maybe you think we should be raising with pocket aces there, but I'm okay with limping, especially if the opponent's good. It's always nice to have aces in your limping range. All right, under the gun 3.5x, we'll just fold. 8-6 suited, we'll just fold. Opponent limps small blind. We'll check this hand as well. This is another hand that flops well enough. Opponent checks. I guess I'll just continue betting here and see what happens. I would be a little bit surprised if opponent folds too often on this board, but I think we can barrel on a lot of cards. Just any big cards fine, any clubs fine, any queens fine. We get check raise though, so we'll just fold. 10-7 offsuit, limping strategy again. Pretty bad flop for me. I'm actually going to check this one because opponent should be checking from the big blind with a lot of these low cards. Opponent bets $1 on the flop. So do we win this 25% of the time? It's probably close. I guess we'll peel. I could see folding being perfectly fine though. Turn 7, we'll just continue checking. This is good. This is our equity. Opponent goes check, check. On the river, should we value bet this? I think we probably can value bet this. It's a little bit thin, but I think if we bet 4 here, opponent's going to call with some worse hands thinking we're bluffing. And I don't know if we're going to induce bluffs in that spot if we check, because I really do think opponent just has a bunch of medium strength made hands. This guy limps. All right, so we'll raise to 5 with king 9 on the button. First limp we've seen. Limp call, and they give me the nuts again. Well, if I keep getting the nuts, I will raise every time. So we'll bet 5 on the flop. It's the spot where you want to bet not so big. It's kind of hard for the opponent to have much of anything. We get called, which is great. We now lose to a few hands, but I think this hand is still good enough to play for stacks. So what would I want to bet with aces here? Would I even want to bet? I probably wouldn't even want to bet, really. I would just check behind. So how much would I want to bet with my bluffs? Probably kind of big to try to get him off of marginal pairs. So I think I probably want to bet kind of big with the nuts as well. So let's do 16. Opponent folds. We maybe could have raised king 5 offsuit in the cutoff. It's close. Take a look at the chart. Always remember the chart. You see king 5 offsuits, not quite in there. So do we 3-bet this or call? We could certainly 3-bet for value. I like 3-betting for value. I would like to be 3-betting here with bluffs sometimes. I'm really just going to have a very wide defending range in reality in the spot. So I'm just going to call. 3-betting's also fine, though. Don't think that 3-betting's not good. Now we're just going to be in check call mode. We're happy to check call down. If it goes check check, we can then go for value. Bet's kind of big on the flop. We will call, as I said. Hand's already played out. Check call, check call, check call. If it goes check check on the turn, I'm probably going to check the river. Maybe not. I don't know. When the opponent bets the flop, he could have a lot of aces, could have a lot of kings. Probably doesn't want to bet a queen. Probably really doesn't want to bet a king. So he should have a lot of air or an ace. If he has an ace, he's going to value bet the river. If he has air, he may bluff. So we're just going to check here to try to let him bluff. Check, check, though. Let's see what he had. He had king 10. So he did have a king. And that's the spot where maybe I missed a little bit of value. But I didn't think he would bet the flop with a king. And what's happening here? This guy raises under the gun. Okay. I didn't think he would bet the flop with a king necessarily. Although king 10's a fine hand to bet because you have draws. So, yeah, maybe missed a little bit of value there, but I like checking because I do think a lot of people will value bet with a king 10 there or with an ace, although maybe that's a bad assessment. All right, so we have under the gun raise. We have king 10 suited in the small blind. This hand's actually close. Let's try 3-betting it. I think folding it's okay. I think calling it's okay. I think 3-betting it's okay. Maybe I wanted to make it a little bit bigger, like 14. I made it 11. I was not thinking clearly. Here's a spot to bet something like 8 on the flop, and then bet small on the flop, small on the turn, big on the river. It's a very nice line here. Your opponent can't do a whole lot about it. On queen 2-2 at least. Queen 10 suited. I guess we'll play this hand and we'll call this the last hand for this session. Looks like we're going to have a 3-bet coming. So I raise to 3. This guy makes it 14. We should probably just fold this. Let's think about our 3-betting range or 4-betting range here. We want to be 4-betting the nuts, right? So we want to be 4-betting these hands probably. So that means I'm going to be calling with stuff like ace 10, ace queen, king jack, queen jack, jack 10, smaller pairs maybe. Although maybe we're supposed to 4-bet this pairs whenever he makes it this big. I think queen 10 is like right on the borderline. So maybe I'm supposed to 4-bet this one as a bluff. What I mean by that is maybe I'm supposed to be 4-betting something like this. Maybe these hands. That's going to be pretty tough to play against, I think. So the question is, do we want queen 10 suited in this range? And I don't know. Let's try making it. Well, the problem is he made it 14, right? I could click it back to like 28. Yeah, let's try 28. So the problem is he's going to call every time, right? If he calls every time, I'm going to be betting something like 18 on the flop. I guess that's okay. Let's try it. Last hand of the session, might as well give it a try. Let's try 28. If he shoves, of course, we're going to fold. If he, he re-raised an amount that is not a legal re-raise size, $8 more. So we'll call. Try to get there. We get a gut shot on the flop and over cards. Am I supposed to jam this? All right, so I can't really check call unless he bets tiny. If I shove this, does he call off with ace king still? Probably. So I guess I don't want to shove because he's going to call with almost everything. You bet 22, so I think we should probably just fold. Kind of a reluctant spot. Don't really know what to make of this. I think this hand's okay to have in the 4-betting range. I just really don't know if I even want to be 4-bet bluffing when he makes it so big. Because, like I said earlier, I just don't have to defend very much when they make it so big. We'll fold this one. Well, they give me ace-queen, so we'll play it. Getting 3-bet again? Maybe? All right, we get a good flop again, so we'll just bet. This is a spot where we want to bet a little bit on the larger side, so we'll bet 4 instead of 3. We could also bet like 5 here. I think that's fine. This board's great for us, and our opponent should have something a lot of the time. I think we can keep value betting the turn. If he raises this, we can fold. I think that's generally the plan. So we're just going to go 3 streets for value here. He just lead into us. So he led into us for 28 into 34 on a stone brick river. I think we have to call. We, of course, lose to queen jack, queen 10. 10-7 probably wouldn't do this. There's very few hands that should do this, and he should almost never have a queen. Or never have a 3, so we're going to call. Let's see what he had. He had jack 7. So jack 7 in this spot was 2 pair. Kind of surprised he donked huge with 2 pair. I was definitely going to value bet my hand. I would have value bet aces and kings. So what does donking do? I guess it gets called by king, queen, maybe, that doesn't bet. He blocks a jack, so he can't really get called by a jack. That seems like a very odd river donk. Because I'm going to be value betting quite wide with hands like ace king. I'm sorry. I guess the issue here is that I should have a lot of better hands than jack 7. So I think jack 7 is an easy check call on the river. But I don't think you want to donk because you win the same amount of money from hands like ace queen. And you open yourself up to getting shoved on by ace king and the 2 pair hands. I don't think that was a very good line for that reason. I think that's a much better spot just to check. Also, it gives me the opportunity to bluff, right? And the opponent would love me to bluff there. So I think you let the bluffs off the hook and you win roughly the same amount versus the value hands. And maybe I would not have bet 28. Maybe I would have bet like 18. So maybe he wins 10 big blinds more in this spot. But yeah, I don't really like that line. See what happens when I click stop. Game will stop after this hand ends. But we fold. Statistics. Let's see what this says. All right. So, says we played 94 hands. Played one hand somewhere else. Don't know what that means. Oh, this was from my previous session when I tried to play and my computer wasn't working well, so I stopped. Win per game, 1.7, whatever. This doesn't really matter. We have a relatively small sample size. And also the profit won is somewhat irrelevant. I definitely would wish that the program would take all-in equity into account because, especially for all-in pots, I think that's an easy one to do it for. Like, for example, when we got it all in with aces versus tens pre-flop, when somebody raised, I threw it and he jammed, that's a spot that should certainly be indicated on the win-loss results. But it's not. It's actually a bad thing. So we got it all in good twice for a lot of money. We flipped once. So, that should be wrote out as broken even. So, yeah. All in all, I think feel comfortable enough playing against the program, but I'll keep on playing with it and see how things go.